Hello everyone, this is Suraj Sharma and welcome to the new topic on problems of population and population policy of India, and it belongs to Unit 1 Nature and Structure of Indian Economy. And for more details you can email me or you can text me on my email or my mobile number. What are the objectives of this class? In last class we have gone through what are resources actually, why optimum utilization of resources is so important. We breed out human and natural resources and an overview for Indian economy. In this class, we would be particularly talking on views of population theories, population a problem or a prospect, and then considering population policy of India. So before going ahead, we would be particularly briefing about different population theories and views, and we'll start with ancient India, where Vedic ashram dharma talked about four ashram dharma: brahmacharya, grihast, vanaprastha, and sannyas. Where this brahmacharya particularly talks about late marriage or the not marriage before the age of 25 years. Mm, and if we see Chinese literature and Greek philosophers also support the views on population control, where the works of Confucius, Plato, and Aristotle can be reviewed. Even Greek philosopher talked about infanticide and child exposure was appropriate if you want to control population. However, if we talk about Roman philosophers, they actually talked about the necessity of increasing population or having a strong and big empire by having a big army, and the work of Cicero can be reviewed here. And in the medieval times, if we see in the times of feudalism and scholasticism, moral and ethics were found more important, and control using artificial checks was found immoral. As we talk about population control, what actually these artificial checks are. These artificial checks includes the methods of abortion, contraception, fertility control, sterilization, etc. uh, then in 14th century, the work of Ibn Khaldun, theory of cyclical variation, talked about with increasing population, division of labor takes place, and because of division of labor, the specialization takes place, and all these leads to increased per capita income. So more population here is not a bad thing for an economy. Moving ahead, uh, if we see the ideas of mercantilists and cameralists in 16th to 18th century in Western European setup, we see that they talked about the quantitative and qualitative aspect of population. Quantitatively, if we see that they argued that increasing population helps in economic development and sovereignty of a nation. At the same time, we need educated and skilled population for qualitative benefits, as like physiocrats, which actually focused on the rule of nature, and they were of the opinion that the nature of law is above all. Were of the opinion that increasing population is not harmful for any economy, and controlling population is not in favor of mankind. However, resources should be adequately there to support the population. So if population is more than the available resources, then problem will occur. Next, we'll talk about the work of William Godwin, where William Godwin put the optimistic view of increasing population, and didn't see any problem in increasing population. Whereas Malthus, in his seminal work, An Essay on the Principles of Population, see very pessimistic view of population, and he was of the opinion that the population increases very rapidly over the food supplied in doesn't. And population grew geometrically or exponentially. It means it will double its magnitude in every 25 years. But the food supply will not. Food supply will only increase arithmetically. And because of this, there is an unbalance between population and food supply. So to actually reestablish this balance, there are preventive or positive checks, where preventive means the voluntary actions like simple living, late marriage, self restraint. And if we don't go for voluntary actions, the nature will work automatically with positive checks. And nature will make this balance of population and food supply by having floods, epidemic, and earthquakes, and so on. Now we'll see if this Malthusian theory is actually working in India or not. And we consider only the population growth here. And we see the population has grown very rapidly after 1950 to 2001. And even in last decade, we see that the population increase is 77% per decade, whereas according to census 2001, the population grew by 21.15% over the decade. And we see that population growth of population rate has decreased, but even now the population is increasing very rapidly. And the forecasts say that in 2019, the population of India stood somewhere to 135 crores. Now here comes the population theory, which is called optimum population theory. And what does it mean by optimum population? Is the ideal population which will yield the maximum returns or income per capita. So as far as optimum population theory is concerned, India is not at all reached to optimum, even at the optimum population, because we are increasing the returns, and we are increasing the per capita income for India over the years. So if we see from the concept of Malthus, we may see a sign of overpopulation. But if we see the from the point of view of optimum population, we are not actually overpopulated, or even reached to optimum population. Now we see the birth rate and death rates. And the crude birth rates and death rates. Here, you can see that in 1981, it was 33.9 live births per thousand population. And it has decreased to 20.2 live births per thousand population, whereas the crude death rate was 12.5 in 1981, and it has decreased to 6.3. As you can see, this gap between CBR and CDR is actually the natural rate of growth of population. And this gap has not significantly decreased over the years. That is why the population is increasing day by day in India. And why we are saying these crude is only because not all births and deaths are registered. So we actually call them crude birth rate and death rates. Now talking about total fertility rate. And what fertility total fertility rate is all about: the number of children that a woman would have over her childbearing years. The childbearing years are considered as 15 to 49. And total fertility rates, as we can see, that it was approximately 6 child per woman in 1960, and it has decreased to 2.3 child per woman in 2017. But even today, we are very far from 2.1 TFR of replacement level. Why we are calling it replacement level is only because two parents will have two children, and they are actually replacing them. So that is why it is called replacement level. uh, Nextly, whether population is a problem or a prospect for India, we see that age of marriage for men was 22 years in 2001, while it has only increased by zero point 0.8 years in 2011. Same goes for women. We see that overall median age for marriage was 18.4%, sorry, 18.4 years in 2001, and it has only increased to 19.2 years. So early marriages are the big problem as far as population increase is concerned. Now, the we have five major problems relating to population, as population is increasing very rapidly, and we have a large base population. The per capita income is low in India, and because of that, low standard of living are there. The second thing is gender composition. As we see, the sex ratio is only 940 for India at per thousand men, 940 women per thousand men, uh, and child sex ratio is in a very much deteriorating situation, where we see that only 919 females per thousand male, and this child sex ratio is actually between the age of 0 to 6, and it has been decreasing over the years. The third thing is unemployment. As we know that as population increases rapidly, as labor force also increases, and if workforce doesn't increase according to the labor force, then there would be unemployment. And the situation is in India is somewhat like that, that proportion unemployed mm, is much more. Fourth, as we have already seen, there is a symptom of overpopulation. If we see the Malthusian theory of population, and the burden over the resources is actually felt when we particularly talked about population and resource balance. The fifth thing is which is actually alarming, that the world population prospect 2019 highlighted that India is likely to add 273 million, means approximately 27 crore people between 2019 to 2050, and it will surpass China in terms of absolute population. So this is the biggest problem as far as population is concerned before India. And what are the prospect? We have already talked about the prospect in lecture 3, where we talked about human resource, and because of this population we actually get this human resource and demographic dividend. So for more details, you can go to lecture 3 or lecture 3 of this particular YouTube channel. Now, population policy of India will be starting from 1940 to the present day. And if we see that in 1940, National Planning Committee constituted a subcommittee on population, and we find family planning and limitation of children essential. And for a particular purpose, we thought about birth control, increasing age at marriage, and sterilization programs, etc. In 5 year plan, with first 5 year plan draft in 1951, we knew that the population policy is very essential for the health of mothers and newborns. We acknowledged that, and in 1952 we promoted a family planning program in India using family planning clinics. Madras was the first state now called Tamil Nadu, which actually in 1959 initiated cash grants for the sterilization, and in 1965 intrauterine contraceptive device was introduced, which is actually called sometimes copper T, for women to control birth. In 1966 a full-fledged department of family planning was formed under the Ministry of Health. In 1976 a statement on national population policy was issued, prioritizing drop in fertility rates. And we also amended our constitution to freeze increase representations of states in lower house, that is Lok Sabha of parliament, according to the census of 1971. So according to the 1971 population, the seats are allocated to the states, and it won't be increases further if we don't amend it. In 1977, the term family planning was replaced with family welfare, and the purpose was to make a family planning program voluntary. In 1982, with the sixth five-year plan draft, we made some goals of projecting NRR. We made targets of crude birth rates, crude death rates, infant mortality rates, and life expectancy too. What actually here the net reproduction rate is, it is somewhat different from fertility rate. And as far as net reproduction rate is concerned, it is the number of female child a woman would be having over his reproductive period. So this the target is we take one female child per woman. In 1983, Parliament emphasized on the need for a separate population policy, as we knew at that time that the population increase is a very big threat for India, and it would be a burden on resources. In 1993, Committee on Population was set up by National Development Council, and it also proposed the formulation of National Population Policy. And finally, in 2000 February, National Population Policy was adopted and announced. And next is what actually the National Population Policy 2000 is concerned with. It is concerned with to meet the reproductive and child health needs, and we made some targets, immediate, medium, and long term targets. What's the immediate objective? The immediate objective was to actually enhance the infrastructural capacity of India, to address the unmet needs of contraception, healthcare infrastructure, health personnel, and to provide integrated service delivery for basic reproductive and child health care. In medium term, we wanted to bring the total fertility rate to replacement level, which is actually 2.1, and we have talked about it earlier. In long term, we want to achieve a stable population by 2045. And what actually this stable population means is at a level consistent with the requirements of sustainable economic growth, social development, and environmental protection. What was planned actually for this? We made school education up to age of 14 free and compulsory for everyone, to reduce the dropout rates in school education. We made targets of reduction in infant mortality rate and maternal mortality rate. We have gone for achieving universal immunization for children, and we promoted delayed marriage of girls. We working towards deliveries by trained persons, not by untrained ones. And we wanted to achieve 100% registration of births, deaths, marriage, and pregnancy, for formulating better planning and policy for the needy, to promote small family norms, to achieve replacement level of TFR. That is why we are going for advertisements in televisions and others. Now, why even with this policy framework, the problem is persisting in India, is because of four basic reasons. The first is high TFR. Even today, if we see the report of NFHS 4 of 2015-16, the TFR is 2.2, and we are not reaching the 2.1. In rural areas, the TFR is much higher at 2.4. The second thing is unmet need for contraception, so that we can control the unwanted birth. And here the contraceptive prevalence rate, CPR, is only 54% for currently married women aged 15 to 49. And actually half of the population of this age of currently married are actually not getting any contraceptive methods. The third thing is high wanted fertility due to high IMR, because the infant mortality is very high. What infant mortality is the death of a child before mm, mm, reaching to 1 year actually. And as we know that if infant mortality rate would be high, then fertility would also be very high, because of the family would be wanting to have children. And the next thing is early marriage of girls. Even today, in 2015-16, the report of NFHS for the says that age at marriage for girls was 18.6 years, and this is very low as compared to other nations. Now, some initiatives, new initiatives taken in this policy framework is increased role of ASHA workers, like home delivery for contraceptives, ensuring spacing in births, and for these works, they actually get incentives. Compensation for sterilization acceptors has been increased for the high focus states which are having high TFR. Provisions of pregnancy testing kits at sub-centers are provided. We celebrate every year on 11th July the World Population Day to increase awareness about the increasing population. And we have a family planning division that is called FP 2020, which is working on the national and state-wise action plans. We have a fund that is called National Population Stabilization Fund, which is actually resourcing these activities. And we have a national helpline number that is toll free, and you can have any query about family planning in this. Thank you so much for being with me. In next class we'll be particularly talking about the need and strategy of planning, particularly economic planning in India. Thank you so much.